This video is about object.create. By learning about this method in JavaScript, we're going to learn two things. So we're going to take our first steps towards object-oriented programming in JavaScript, and we're also going to learn about this hidden link, this __proto ___, otherwise known as dunderscore. And before we begin, you wouldn't write this code in production. You would use ES6 classes, but it's important to know what object.create is doing under the hood. Okay, so let's set the stage. So this video is not about object-oriented principles. This video is about how we do object-oriented programming in JavaScript with object.create. Let's start. So the goal is to create an abstraction to create objects like bugs and Daffy. We want to avoid creating these objects manually. We also want to avoid duplicating code. If we look closely, every time we create a new character object, we also create a new speak function. This is not good for many reasons, but the big one is that we're wasting memory. Okay, so let's continue with this example. But let's create a function to create these types of objects for us. Okay, so let's create a function to create characters, and here we have three parameters: name, defeated, and catchphrase. Okay, so here's the code. As we can see, not much changed. So we created a function to create character objects, and let's go ahead and create two, one for bugs and one for Daffy. Problem is though that this speak function, right, each of these objects still has its own speak function, but what we want to do is define the speak function once and have our objects like Daffy and bugs reuse that function. Imagine having thousands of characters. For each character, we would have a speak function. And again, this is a waste of memory. And so this is where object.create will help us solve this problem. Okay, so let's refactor this character creator function and have it use object.create. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to extract that speak function, right? We need to create a function store object and place all of the functions that we want our objects to reuse. The next thing that we want to do is define a character creator function. Okay, so now we're ready to use object.create, and object.create, it either takes a null or it takes an object. And in this case, we're passing the function store object. Okay, so two things are happening here. So object.create will return an empty object, and that empty object is what will get stored in new character. And the second thing it does, it creates this hidden link __proto ___, which is attached to that object that it creates, and it has a reference to the object that we pass into our object.create function. And same as before, we'll just go ahead and add these three properties: name, defeated, and catchphrase to our new character. And of course, once we've constructed our new character, we also need to make sure to return that new character. And so here I'll go ahead and create two characters, one for bugs and one for Daffy. Okay, so now we defined a single speak function that our objects can reuse. And this is what object-oriented programming is all about, right? We want to write once and reuse our functions. So now bugs.speak and Daffy speak both reference our speak function on our function store object. Before moving on, I just want to make a few quick remarks about the this keyword in JavaScript. So I really won't spend too much time explaining how this behaves in JavaScript. That will be another video, but I will make sure to include links to resources that explain how this behaves or misbehaves in JavaScript. Okay, so moving on, let's go ahead and walk through this example in a little bit more detail. Okay, so here we have memory, right? And the first thing that we need to do is create that function store object. And on this object, we want to place all of our utility functions or functions that we want our objects to reuse. And so this function store object will be stored somewhere in memory. And similarly, we'll go ahead and define our character creator function, and that will also be stored somewhere in memory. And I removed some of the code because I ran out of space. Okay, so the next thing to do would be to create a bugs object, and two things are happening here. We have the left hand side of the assignment and we have the right hand side of the assignment. So let's focus on the right hand side of the assignment. So here we're invoking the character creator function and we're passing in three arguments: bugs, 0, and what's up doc. And in JavaScript, anytime that we execute a function, we create a new execution context. And I won't really talk too much about that because I've made a whole video on that, and I'll make sure to link the video. So anyways, we can think of this box as this execution context that is created for a character creator function. Okay, so before we go inside the body of the function and run the code, we need to handle these arguments. So each argument will be associated with its corresponding parameter name, right? Name, defeated, and catchphrase. And this is what it looks like. So to name, we'll assign bugs, right? Defeated will be assigned to value 0, and catchphrase will be what's up, doc. Okay, so now we're ready to go inside the body of the function and run the code. Okay, so now that we're inside the function, we have, again, right, the left hand side of the assignment and the right hand side of the assignment. And let's go ahead and deal with the right hand side of the assignment. And again, this object.create function, it will create another execution context, but I'm not going to do that because it's just going to get a little too muddy. And again, object.create either takes a null or some other object. And here we're passing it the function store object, where we have defined the functions that we want our objects to reuse. So object.create is doing two things, right? It creates this empty object for us and stores it in new character. And the second thing it does, it will add this hidden link, right? Underscore underscore proto underscore underscore proto. And that hidden property will have a reference, or it will point to our function store, again, where we have stored all the functions that we want our objects to reuse. And then finally, we'll just go ahead and add those three properties to our new object, right? Name, defeated, and catchphrase. And once we hit the return keyword, right, we're going to return this new character, or we're going to return this object that we just created using object.create and store it in our variable or const bugs. And this is what it will look like, right? So somewhere in memory, we have this bugs object that looks something like this. And so once we return out of the function, this execution context is garbage collected. So I'll go ahead and create one more object, but I won't go through this process again and just show you the end result. So Daffy will look something like this. The object for Daffy will also have this hidden link underscore underscore proto underscore underscore, which points to our function store or references our function store. Okay, so now we're ready to invoke the speak function off the bugs object. So the first thing that's going to happen, right, we're going to look up bugs in memory. So we see that we find bugs in memory. Now the next thing that we want to do is invoke this speak method. So we'll go ahead and search our bugs object for the speak method, right? We search and search and we see that we don't find that speak method. So this is where this hidden link comes into play, right? This underscore underscore proto underscore underscore proto. And so if we can't find a particular method or a property on an object, JavaScript by default will do this, right? It will look for these hidden links and then follow those hidden links. If it finds a hidden link, it will follow that link, right? Until it either finds the property or method. And if it doesn't find a property or method, you'll either see undefined in the console or you'll see some sort of reference error. And when you hear people talk about prototypal inheritance in JavaScript, this is what they mean. This is how JavaScript works, right? This is prototypal inheritance. Okay, so we didn't find the speak method directly on our bugs object. So now let's go ahead and search for that hidden link, right? And we see that our bugs object has a hidden link to function store. So we'll go ahead and follow that link. Okay, now that we found our function store object in main memory, let's go ahead and search for the speak method. And sure enough, we find that speak method. So now that we found it, we're ready to invoke it. And this will create another execution context. And in this case, I'm showing it because it's a simple function. We don't have any arguments or parameters that we need to worry about. So we can go inside the body of the function. And here, this line of code is pretty straightforward. We're just logging to the console and we're logging this.catchphrase. And actually, this.catchphrase will evaluate to bugs.catchphrase. Okay, and so the next thing that we need to do is, since this evaluates to bugs, we need to, one more time, look up bugs in main memory, and we see that we find it. Now, the next thing that we have to look for is this catchphrase property. So we'll search the object directly, and we see that we find the catchphrase, and we'll go ahead and log that to the console. And the exact same thing happens for Daffy.speak. Okay, and before finishing this video, you don't necessarily need to understand all of this to use ES6 classes, but when you work with production code bases, from time to time you will see this older syntax used. This particular syntax I haven't encountered in my professional career or in open source libraries, but the syntax that I still encounter deals with the new keyword, and that will be a whole nother video. And so if you want to do object-oriented programming in JavaScript, you need to understand what prototypal inheritance is. Okay, and before finishing off this video, I just want to talk about a few things. So as I mentioned earlier, the this keyword in JavaScript does not behave like it does in other languages like Java or C++. And this is one of the reasons why ES6 arrow functions were created. And here's a link to a resource that you can use to learn more about the this keyword in JavaScript and learn more about how the this keyword misbehaves or behaves in JavaScript. And so the next thing to learn about is the new keyword in JavaScript. This one is more important to know because you still see this syntax in production code bases and in open source repositories. And I'll make sure to make a video on this as well. And one more thing before I end the video, when you're learning about object-oriented programming in JavaScript, you'll encounter this dunder proto keyword and the prototype keyword. I've gone ahead and included a link to a discussion on this topic. And as you're learning about object.create, the new keyword, and ES6 classes in JavaScript, make sure to reference this Stack Overflow link because it does a really good job of explaining the differences between proto and prototype as you're learning about object-oriented programming in JavaScript. Anyways, I didn't want to make this video too long. Hopefully you found it useful and informative. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.